Hi guys, my name is Jason Knowles and thank you so much for purchasing Flatpak. It's a product that's been a long time in the making and we're really happy with how it's turned out and I know you're going to love it. Hi guys, so before we get into the gimmick itself, I just want to give you a bit of background on the history of Flatpak and sort of where it's come from. So I've got to give a massive shout out to my good buddy Daniel Meadows. One of the most intelligent and creative people that I've ever met in the magic industry. You should really check out his work, check out Cerberus Wallet, Infamous Book Test. And most people don't actually know this, but he was the mastermind behind Tactical, which was a Magic World Creative Team bestseller. Just saying, check him out, you won't regret. But me and Daniel were jamming at Magic World in Manchester and he had some ideas for an appearing deck, and one of those ideas was around the idea of being able to unfold a playing card box from out of a mint tin and produce a deck of cards out of it. And then once you've done that, at the end be able to fold it back up and put it back in the tin, which was a beautiful idea. And later on he showed me a video of sort of a cardboard box prototype that he'd made, which was a playing card box that had a side and a front and a top. But one of the sides was missing, the back was missing, the base was missing, and he folded it up into quarters. So it's basically like a two-sided deck shell, but he'd folded it up. And he'd already had some ideas for like be able to copy it from a table, and then he already knew that he wanted to be able to potentially like lap it or steal it, and then fold it back and put it in the box. But he had no idea how he could make the box expand or anything like that. So I was like, challenge accepted, let me run with this. Because I'm a walk around performer, I think that kind of jaded my thinking in terms of how I started to tackle this situation. So I started to think about, first off, we'll come on to the second credit, which is Shin Lim from Shenanigans. My first thought was, how can I make these side panels come out on their own? And on Shenanigans, there's a gimmick that allows him to go from a single playing card into a full deck and back to a single playing card. It's a really beautiful gimmick. It didn't have the pot, but I thought that'd be a really good starting point for the mechanics. It's evolved massively since there, but that was my starting point, which started thinking around that. So shout out to Shin. So I started to play with lots of different ideas for being able to make this box annotate, but then being a walk around performer, I totally changed the design of this box completely. So we went from 2 sides to 3 sides. I wanted to be covered 360 and be able to be comfortable in performing this. I hate performing at a table. I'm no good with that. I can't do it with the T-Rex arms. So I ended up to try and adapt this for a walk around situation. So I didn't like the idea of quarters because I thought that was going to be very difficult to perform if I'm not using a table and I'm not unfolding it slowly. I wanted this to be a big visual moment. So I went with 3 sides instead of 2 sides. I had to make the box bigger than a card box because then I wanted to be able to load it, but have it easy to load because I didn't want the complications in a walk around situation. The mint tin wasn't going to work for me, so it was out with the mint tin, right? How can I produce this actual folded box now? So it was like, okay, let's use a wallet. This is more practical for walk around. Okay, now I've got a justification for going to my pocket. So I've got a justification to get the deck, and I've got now a justification for the load and for the ditch and for the vanish. And just over the last 2.5-3 years, just really refining all of that. And then the amount of materials we've tested for this gimmick to get it to what you see today is incredible. So I've put an awful lot of work in this over 2.5-3 years, and Daniel has very kindly given me his blessing to share this with the world. So big shout out to Daniel Meadows, because without him I would not have started on this crazy 2.5-3 year journey, and you wouldn't have something like Flatpak in your hands. So shout out to Daniel. So what's in the box? So you're already watching this video, so you've already figured out that you've got some access details to watch the content. And here is your Flatpak gimmick. A couple of things to call out. You'll notice that the foam is quite tight for your gimmick. So when you do put this away, if you want to store it inside the box, you just need to ease it inside the foam. The reason for this is that the foam is going to become looser over time, so we thought it'd be a better idea to make it quite tight now, so that once you start to store it in the future, it'll be nice and snug inside the box. In terms of the actual mechanics, the starting point for this was a project from Shin Lim on Shenanigans. He had a single card where the sides came out and it looked like a full deck, and he was using it to make a full deck vanish into a single card. The mechanics are slightly different in terms of the tension and the way that the whole pop out and folds work, but that was sort of a starting point, so I thought I'd give Shim a shout out on that one. And you should definitely check out Shenanigans if you haven't already, because there's some tremendous work on there. So that's some credit in up front. So let's talk through the flat pack gimmick. First of all, you'll notice that it is a blue bicycle gimmick. Don't worry about that. We're going to go through some customization later, and you can customize this to almost any playing card case that you choose. However, we went with blue because one, I perform with blue all the time, and two, when you actually perform this, I personally believe that the blue stands out better against skin color, so it gives you a more visceral visual. So that's the main reason for the blue. In terms of the gimmick itself, let's get through how you're going to use it. So the sides of the gimmick go in first, the front of the gimmick comes down, and the gimmick closes on itself inwards. So you've now got a folded position, and I'll just run through that from a performance view. So with the bottom of the case facing away from you, you're going to push the sides in, you're going to push the front down, and you're going to fold the back down so that the word playing cards is facing the spectator. And then we'll get into some performance routines later in terms of how to perform it, but very, very simply, all you need to do is pinch right in the middle at the top, and whether it's into your hand or on the table, all you're going to do is let go. That simple, that easy. Sides in, front down, back down, pinch, and you're ready to go. So with the flat pack gimmick, they've been precisely made to try and get these edges as tight as possible so that once the box is in full display, it's not obvious that there's any gaps. The disadvantage of this is that sometimes you can get a bit of friction between these edges, and depending on how tight they are, when you push this in and this round and the deck pops out, sometimes you can have a situation where the sides don't pop out. Very, very simply, you'll be able to see on the inside as to where that edge is catching, and if you need to, you can take a precise knife and trim down the edge. And when we go through the customization a little bit, I'll go through that in a bit more detail. And the reason for that is that there's a large amount of rubber on the inside of this to help it spring. So the natural position that this box wants to be in is flat. So the rubber is trying to push the box flat. The thread here is simply to keep the box in shape and stop those flaps opening too far. So at some point, the thread is going to wear out and you will need to rethread those corners. And again, I'll go into that in more detail when we talk about customization and some quick hacks in terms of if you need to run a quick repair on how you can do that very quickly on the fly. So in terms of performance, there's loads of ideas for this, but I'm going to give you a very, very basic concept of how this would work in a tabled, seated position if you perform at tables. So, very simply, you'd fold your gimmick up in the first place and it would start inside your wallet or whatever object you want to pull it out of, or you could even have it palmed or anything along those lines. We've already gone through how to expand the gimmick. I like to rotate the gimmick so that people can see just how thin it is in this situation. And from a visual, you literally have no work to do other than drop it on the table. Now, for the idea of explanation, we're going to give you a bit of an expose where you can see that I've got another deck of playing cards here just laying off the back of the table, so you can see how the load's going to work. If you were performing this for a competition act or for a sort of parlour situation, you'd have a little holdout on the bottom of the table where this deck would sit, and when we do the customization a little bit, I'll go through how you can make something up very quickly. We'll do the job for you. Literally all you're going to do once you've dropped the deck onto the table is reach and swipe back as if you're pulling it off the edge of the table, and you're going to slide it onto the other box, which you can pick up with your other hand, and as you rotate the box over, you've now loaded. Very simply, open the lid. You're only going to pull the first bend back. So if you look at a normal deck of playing cards, you've got multiple bends. You've got the first one that comes down. You're only going to go to the first bend there. And that is just going to fold over the top of your flat pack gimmick. And that will then hold it in place pretty much. The side flaps you can pull around the edge of your gimmick again. And then you should be in a pretty steady position where literally you can just tip the deck out. Now with the box itself, if you've got the flaps, you can hold it by the flaps and you can sit that down and it will actually stay nested around the original box. So you don't really need to worry about that if you're doing a table performance. I would just leave it on the table myself personally, because there's nothing really to see. And the great thing about this is because it's actually a deck of playing cards that is inside it, a full box, you can actually look at the box from all sides, and there is a little discrepancy with this gap here if you were to hold it for any real length of time. But sort of in the action of loading, people can see both sides of the box. And this bit's covered anyway as you're tipping the cards out, so there's nothing really to see there. So very simply, you've now produced a deck of cards out of nowhere. In terms of once you've finished a routine, again, grip the box from the sides, you can put the full deck away. If you do this towards the edge of the table, you can very simply close the box up, and then all you're going to do is, as you come to take the cards, you would get it in some kind of biddle grip, and as you turn the cards around, you would let that drop and lap it as you bring the flat pack back on the table. You can give it a moment, maybe a magical gesture. At that point, everything's done. You can fold up and put that box away, and you've just created an absolute miracle. So some things to consider from what you've just seen there is that this is a table for studio performance, and this wouldn't be the kind of table that I would be performing for if it was a parlour situation, or especially if it was a competition act. For a competition act, you'd have your own table set at a height that you'd like, with any holdouts pre-made. This is purely for explanation purposes, which is why we've got a little tray here so you can see the box as it's being held out, which means that as we lap it, you will hear it land on the table. In a tabled situation, ideally you would want a savant on the back of the table, so that as you lap, these would drop inside the savant. It'd be nice and quiet and there'd be no issues, but from a visual perspective, no one will see anything. Just put the box on the table. So this section we're going to talk through the walk around or stand up version of this performance. When I came up with this effect, everything I do performance wise is walk around, so that was the real aim and the challenge for me with this. So I do a lot of stuff around the Gambler's Cop, so we'll go into detail around how I do the load and how I make it work for that. So first of all, I'd just like to give Dave Loosely a bit of a credit on this. So he came up with a great idea in terms of letting the spectator take the cards from the wallet. So my opening's all around, I'm a bit of a minimalist. The only thing I carry around with me is my wallet, not a magic wand. And inside my wallet is where I keep my deck of playing cards. So do me a favour, if you could pinch onto that and pull it out. So this was Dave's idea, lets them take the gimmick out and they can hold the gimmick, which is really good. With then a bit of play on how many cards do you think are inside that box. So that was a really, really good idea, like that a lot. So cheers, Dave. From there, they'll say one, whatever, and take it back, and then I have a bit of a play on, actually, do me a favour, you hold on to my wallet, but whatever you do, don't run off with it. So anyone who's followed me for a while on Double Take, I've got a similar reference, so I gave them my wallet and I referenced the local area. So today I'm in Ashford, do me a favour, hold on to that, keep it nice and tight, we're in Ashford, I don't want anyone to run off with it. It usually gets a bit of a laugh. So they're holding on to the wallet, very simply, show all sides, and just as in the earlier explanation, simply drop it into the hands. With the production on this, try and keep it this sort of distance from the hands, so that when it drops in, you get a nice impact. If you drop it from too high, you're going to get like the deck floating down. That's not going to look great. It's going to jump around all over the show. So if you can keep it about this distance away from the hands, you get a really good impact as it drops in. From this point, I pick the gimmick up in sort of a biddle grip in the right hand as I reach back and take the wallet from the spectator. And Michael Close came up with a bit of advice around in transit motion, so making gestures with the hands as you're sort of crossing and referencing this. So the wallet is basically the misdirection for the load of the gimmick. So it gives you a great excuse to go to your pocket because you're going to put your wallet away. So literally in terms of from the front angle, all they're going to see is the wallet goes away, and this whole idea of the in-transit motion and gesturing with the hands as you're talking gives you a reason to bring the hands back over here as you load. So from the front, it's bang, bang, you've loaded, and I'm sure the second time around you saw how quick that really was. We'll go through in detail how that works, but from the cards are loaded, you can tip out. So how does that work? The cards need to go in your back pocket, and if you were to hold the cards in your hand, they're sort of in mechanics grip, the word playing cards would be at the face. So simply, they're going to go into your back pocket, nice and loose, and your wallet's obviously where the flat pack is loaded. So you've done your production and the box is out, you take the wallet back, and literally all you're going to do is you drop this in behind the deck of playing cards, and as you take your whole hand in, you're going to bring this box out and it's going to be in a gambler's cup position. Now, if you don't know gambler's cup, it's kind of in between your middle finger and the fleshy part of your thumb there. The idea being that once you are sideways on, with a little close of your thumb, you can hide the whole cards. So from the front, they can't really see anything. Now, Daniel Madison's got a lot of work on the Gambler's Cup, and so has Jason England. I highly recommend that you check out both of those resources. You'll get a lot out of it. I use a lot of the Gambler's Cup, which is why this was my solution. But from this position, as you come out with the Gambler's Cup and you gesture over with this hand, all you're gonna do is bring the two together as they meet, and that's gonna load straight in. So from the front, even in slow motion, I can get away with almost loading that without you being able to see it. So you're coming up, you're going to rotate at the last minute as you bring your thumb out and slide in. So from a close-up from this camera angle here, you're coming up, release your thumb as that comes into there. So nice fluid motion. Once you get some speed with that, it's literally undetectable as it goes in. Once you've done the load, I tip up from this back edge as I rotate over. Now this is a really nice moment because they can see the back of the box as well, and literally just pop the deck open both sides, tip the cards out. And usually if I'm in a walk around situation, I just take that whole box with the flat pack on and put it back in my back pocket and go on to performing something. Once you've finished your routine, really simply, you reach back, pull the flat pack back out with the box inside, and all you're going to do is you're going to load the cards in, close the box up, and let it rest inside your hands. Really simply, lift up on the back of the flat pack and slide your hand backwards so that that is now in a gambler's cup position. So from side angle, you should be able to see it there. From the front, this is all they can see. And all you're going to do is reverse the motion. So as you lift up and gesture with the box, you go into the gambler's cup position. So you twist your hand out, and in that situation, it's completely covered. Go to your back pocket, drop those in as you pull the wallet out. So that's your justification to go into the pocket. No one's seen anything at this stage. And really simply, all you've got to do then is fold the box up and put it away. So a really great additional idea if you want to perform this in a stand-up situation. This was an idea from Eric Jones. So if you perform corporate events, if you're wearing like a blazer or a jacket, you can actually have the deck on a speed loader on the inside of your jacket with a view that, let's just pop this here for a second. You do the production, and his whole idea was take a little bow, and as you take the bow, you steal out of the speed loader, and as you come back up, you're there. So it's a really practical working load if you're in the kind of environment where you'd be wearing a blazer. So that's everything I'm going to teach you for performing this in a stand-up or walk-around situation. If you've got any more questions, again, feel free to hit me up on social media at Deception is Reality. So in this section, I'm going to talk you through a few key things. One is repairing your gimmick if anything goes wrong with it. Two is how to customize it into a different deck of playing cards. Three, we're going to go through how to very quickly knock up a holdout device if you don't have one, and some of the tools that you may need to run your repairs or to customize the gimmick. So we'll start off with the holdout device. And very simply, all you're going to need is a thick piece of card and a deck of playing cards. And if you fold the card up against either side of the box, and you want to have a little bit of space so that you've got a nice loose bit of play. So you then put those folds in and score them down on both sides, and you'll see there that you've got a nice bit of a gap. You can fold some flaps down back the other way, and then all you're going to do is take this, and with some tape, you can tape these edges underneath the table so that the table will rest on top of your holdout. Your deck will sit nice and loosely inside of there so that when you do the table production and you slide out, you can just have a hand underneath this and you slide off the edge of the table so that you've got your load. So that's just a very, very quick and simple hold out device that you can make for about 10p if you don't want to go and buy something more expensive. So that's that. In terms of repair, so some key things to understand. The thread will wear out. So we've got two gimmicks here and we'll do some close-up shots in a moment. We've got one that is brand new, fresh out the box and has never been repaired, and we've got another one that has had some repairs done on it. When it comes brand new, it's kind of got a very clever sort of cantilever threading type system where the thread starts on the inside of the gimmick here, comes out through this corner, around the inside of the front edge, back out around the corner and back on the inside of here. And there's some little cardboard tabs on the inside that are stuck down. If the thread snaps and you don't want to go through the effort of tying these all the way back up in this cantilever system, you can have a really very quick repair. And very simply, you're going to need some prim, which is elastic thread. You can get this on Amazon, it's not very expensive, and a needle. And if you don't like tying knots in prim, then a little bit of sellotape will do you some great good. All you're going to do is thread through the corners multiple times. We'll go through this on a close-up shot in a moment. And you're going to attach one end of the thread to this side and one end of the thread to this side of the box, and you'll have run a repair on just the one corner. If you want to reproduce the cantilever, you're going to have to strip the whole thread out, peel the cardboard tabs off the inside of the box, and we'll go through in detail as to how you can rethread and attach that. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about sort of running repairs and things that can go wrong with a gimmick and how to fix it. So we'll start off with this, which is a gimmick fresh out the box. You can see on the inside here, there's like a little cardboard tab, and the thread is attached to the little cardboard tab and it's knotted through, and it runs all along the inside of this gimmick here. It comes out through a little hole on the outside, it goes around the corner, back in through the top of the thread, through that little hole there. It then runs along the inside, back out again on the front edge here through this little hole, around the corner again, and then back down the inside onto this cardboard tab on the other side. So what tends to happen, how it tends to break, and it can happen live performance, and I'll go through how to style that out if that does happen, but what can happen is the corner can snap. So you can end up with this situation where this is going to want to go flat, as we discussed earlier. So first off, if that happens in performance, really simply, you're going to catch this in your hand anyway. So all you're going to do is use your fingers on one side and your thumb on the other to stop it extending too far, and you can still get away with it when you do your load. It gives you a little bit more flexibility and you can hold on to the gimmick. So if that happens mid-performance, don't panic, it's fine. Obviously it's not a long-term solution, so you've got a few options for this. The quick option, you're going to need some prim, which is elastic thread. It's not invisible, and you're going to need a needle. And if you don't like tying knots in elastic thread, then you can use some sellotape. So the quick option is you're just going to take a piece of prim and a needle. Okay, so you're going to start out by going through the top flap first, and as there's already a hole in there because the gimmick's been threaded once before, and you want to pull the thread through till there is probably about 2.5 centimeters worth of thread on the inside. Now all you need to do from here is take a little bit of tape. So you don't have to worry about being too neat with this because it's going to be on the inside of the gimmick. So you're only going to need about that much tape. And what you're going to do on the inside is you're going to take this piece of thread and you're just going to sellotape it to the top flap. And don't worry if you have a little bit of tape sticking out across this top edge because you can trim that down afterwards. But what that's going to do is that's going to hold this piece of thread in place while you do your threading around the corner, and it'll create the tension that you need. So literally now you've got one end secured, and all you're going to do is you go through the side hole, back through the top hole. Don't worry about pulling this too tight at this stage. Once you're back out the top hole and you've got one full loop, sort of pull it nice and tight, hold it in place a little bit. If it comes slack while you're threading it, you can pull it all tight at the end. One more time around for good measure. And then back through the side. And you want to finish on the side so that you end up with an even balance. And you'll end up with a nice tight corner looking like this. All you're going to do then is you're going to snip so that you leave about 1 centimetre, 2 centimetres, 2.5 centimetres roughly of thread. And in the exact same situation you did a minute ago, you're going to take some tape. Now, here's the key bit. You've got your loose end of thread and you want to pull this quite taut on the inside. So usually it's good to pull it beyond the halfway point. And the piece of tape that you got, you're just going to simply put it over that bit of thread. And again, if there's a little bit sticking over the edge, don't worry about it. We can trim that down in a moment. And you should have a nice tight corner again there. If there's any excess thread, you can snip that off. And then all you're going to do then is you're just going to trim the excess tape off the sides. And if there's any difficulties with this, what you can do is you can sort of pull the other flap out of the way so you can get your scissors right up to the edge. And then do the same on the top edge. And again, if you need to pull the siding out of the way a little bit, that's fine. And trim those. And then you have a gimmick that's fixed. Now, the key thing to remember here is that the corner that you've just fixed is going to be quite tight to start with. So you want to ease it in to start with, and you'll feel the tension. So just nice and easily ease that in until you can get it flat without it snapping. So just work it in slowly. Once you've then got it to go all the way down, you should be able to then reuse your gimmick, and that's fixing the gimmick. If you want to go full-on professional, which I don't think you really need to do, you can peel, let's get the first one, you can peel these little cardboard tabs off, and all you're going to do is tie your thread around those, stick it down, work your thread out through the corner, around, back in, around, and then tie it to another piece of cardboard on the other side, and you're going to stick those on the inside. It's pretty straightforward to fix, self-explanatory, but you can see in terms of a repair, this one we've literally just done now. It took 2 seconds and it's back to normal. Sorry, one quick piece of advice for anyone who has any kind of gimmick making within Magic. Highly recommend one of these. This is made by the exact same company that makes the elastic thread, Prim. It's a needle holder, it's telescopic, it's magnetic, it's fantastic. You're not going to drop loads of needles everywhere. So top tip, you can get those on Amazon and they are an absolute lifesaver for anyone who does anything with thread. Okay, so let's go through customization. The only thing you're going to need to customize it is some glue. Now, a regular glue stick works perfectly fine. The other glue that works quite well is this two-way glue, which again, you can get on Amazon. It kind of works like a pen. If you put the two items, if you colour it on and you put the two items together while it's wet, it'll create a permanent bond. If you let it dry, it'll work like Elmer's Rubber Cement, where you can sort of peel it. So that is always a good option, and again, you can get that from Amazon. But most people will have a glue stick or have access to a glue stick very quickly, so I'll go through customization using a glue stick. So we are going to take this and turn it into a red deck of bikes. So the first thing you're going to need to do is pop the seal. And don't worry about the back of the box because it's the bit that you're not going to use. So, essentially a flat pack is just a deck of playing cards that's been gimmicked a little bit. So you can use an existing box, so you don't have to go out and buy anything special. All you're going to do here is you're going to cut down these corner edges. Now the tip here is don't cut right to the edge, so you don't want to cut into the side of the box. You want to cut into the back part of the box because that's the bit that you're going to discard and you're not going to need. If you cut down the sides, you might end up with some really rough edges which you won't be able to tidy up. So if we cut all the way down to the bottom of there and do the same on the other side, that should be able to pull all the way out. And then you're gonna, on the inside, you can then get to these little tabs. I don't know if you can see them, but there's some little tabs on the inside here. If you peel those back on both sides, you'll then get the box to come apart completely flat. So it'll look like that. This back edge you don't need, you're going to discard, so you're going to cut again. If you're worried about how much excess you've got, you cut more on the back side than on the bottom side because this piece is going to be used on the box. You're just going to try and get as straight a line as you can across there. And now really all you're going to do is cut this down into its component parts. So you're going to trim the sides, you're going to take the bottom piece off, and you're going to take this top flap off, and then we'll show you how to stick it down. So we're going to start off with the sides. Now I always find that it's easier to cut from beneath because you can see the score lines, and when you're cutting this with scissors you want to aim to go down the middle of those score lines, and take your time. The straighter the cut you get on this, the better it's going to look. So we've got our side pieces. We're now going to need to take the bottom off, and again we're just going to go down the score line, and we want to get as tight, as straight an edge as possible. Perfect. And then with this, you're not going to cut across the first fold, you're going to cut across the top of where the box seals. So again, that's got a pretty good score line, so you can see that. So cut straight down the middle of that. And in essence, those are your component parts for your flat pack. So we'll start off with the sides. You don't need these little tabs on the end, so you can cut those off and get a nice straight line. So if you're a perfectionist and you want to keep this gimmick as thin as possible, you could go down the splitting routine. So I'm not an expert in card splitting. If you follow Gaff Guy on Instagram, you'll probably, Jeremy Hanrahan, you'll probably know all about card splitting, and I'm sure he's got a tutorial online that you can buy about card splitting. But essentially you're just going to work the corners until you get a bit of a split, and you can peel it into a thinner layer. I don't think it's needed, I think it's overkill, so I'm not going to go through that in loads of detail, but there are resources out there that'll go through card splitting that'll tell you how to do that if you want to keep it thinner. But for now I'm just going to go through this. So the easy way to do this is to, the top of the box that you've just taken, is flip it over upside down. Now this is going to be slightly smaller than your flat pack gimmick, but it doesn't matter because there's a white border, so it's still going to look great. But if you flip it over and you line it roughly in the middle of where you want it, you should be able to see on both sides where the fold is from the middle of the flat pack. Now a top tip here is if you put a deck of playing cards underneath your flat pack, it's going to hold it more steady and more firm while you try and do this. So if you line that up roughly about middle, and all you're going to do is make a pencil mark where the fold line is. If you then take a ruler and join those lines up, you've then got a cutting line that you can go down. So, perfect. All you're going to do now is take your glue. It's important that you glue onto the piece that you're sticking on and not onto the flat pack box, because this piece is obviously going to be slightly narrower than the flat pack box, and you don't want all that glue on your edges and your borders because it'll look a bit rubbish. Let's make sure we get more on there, it's a bit dry. Okay, now all you're going to do is line that up with your fold line. So you line that up there and roughly middle, and because you've got the original artwork, you can sort of see where roughly middle is, and because it's a glue stick, you can slide it side to side to line it up with where you want. I think we need a little bit more glue in this corner. Gonna be cool. And if you just keep pulling it upwards until you get right onto that line where the crease is, where the fold's going to be, and if there's any excess glue around the edges, you can just wipe that off with your fingers, and it's better to get that off now before it dries and makes a mess. Now again, the second piece, all you're going to do now is line that up so that you have got perfect alignment with the other half of the card, and that's awesome. So that's going to take a few minutes to dry and really sort of set in place. If you need to reposition it, do it at this time, because you can just slide it around. If you can see any excess glue on the surface, try and just wipe that off. It should come off pretty easily. You should just be able to take it off with your finger. There shouldn't be any challenges around that. And you can see that that looks fantastic. Now, the sides are the exact same situation. So it doesn't really matter for this, because let's be honest, lay people don't really know much about playing cards. But if you're sort of a perfectionist, it's important to understand the orientation of this writing and make sure that it goes the right way around. For instance, don't put them on upside down or it'll look really stupid. So all you're going to do is the exact same thing with this one. You're going to line it up roughly middle to where you want it, and again, don't go too far to the front or too far to the back, and all you're going to do is make a little mark to where you're going to cut it. And with this one, if you're like me, I'm not going to bother drawing a line with a ruler across that. It's quite a short piece, I can cut straight across those edges. And before you go on to your next side piece, make sure you glue this down in place. It'll give it a chance to dry before you start messing about with the gimmick. Again, you're going to make sure that you push this right up to where the fold is before you stick it in place, so that you don't get any of that blue coming through. And just kind of press that. You can use your fingers to press that together. Try not to get too much glue on your fingers, because when you pull your fingers away after pressing down, it's going to pull that back. And again, if there's any sort of marks on there, you can just scrape those off. But that looks like a pretty good fit. And again, the next piece, you're going to push that right up, and what you want to try and do with this is make sure that the gold bars are sort of aligned. So you can play around with that and slide that around. So I'm going to do this facing me for a second so that I can get it right. And again, wipe off any excess from the edges. You can see there we've got a pretty good join. Don't worry too much about the elastic, because what you'll notice is that because the flat pack gimmick is bigger than the card box that you've just cut apart, on the front edge here, you'll see that the hole for the elastic, I don't know if you can just about see that, the hole for the elastic is in front of this front edge, so it's not going to stop anything from working. And to be honest, the sides are going to be inside your hand once the box has popped out, so no one's going to see any of that level of detail. So Yeah, so you can follow the exact same process for the other side, nothing different. And for the front edge, the only thing here is just make sure that it's lined up nice and neatly. Oh, sorry, I pulled that off. For the front edge, make sure that's lined up nice and neatly in the middle. And again, if you can leave a bit of breathing room for the thread on the corners, that would be perfect. And once you're finished, you should have something that looks pretty awesome.
Hi guys, I'm Dave Loosely and I'm going to show you a little extra handling for this incredible flat pack gimmick. Now if you haven't already got one of these, this is like an Oyster card holder or a bank card holder. You can pick these up for about £1 or $1. So get one of these in your hands. You've probably already got one lying around the house and I'm going to show you exactly how you can use it. So as you saw in the trailer, Jason showed me this effect. That was the first time I saw it was on camera and I absolutely loved it, and he gave me one after that shoot. And I started playing around and producing it from a wallet. After that, it became this. And Murphy's loved it so much that they wanted to include it on this DVD. So for completeness, I'm gonna take you through everything you need to know to use this. Okay, so you have this wallet in your hands now. Let's learn how to use it. These are great. What I would suggest is just popping a couple of cards in one side of the wallet and then taking your flat pack gimmick, how you've been taught to use it already, fold it up like so, with this bend in the middle and the bicycle side going in. So you're going to see the rider back side, and that's going to go in like this. Now you don't want to push it too far down because you don't want to be fumbling to try and get it out. So I sit it just there so that it can still close, but you've got enough room to grab hold of it, okay? That is now set and ready to go. In your pocket, be it your back pocket or your side pocket, you're going to take the deck of cards, okay? I'm sat down, so I've just got it down here, concealed on my lap, and using the table as cover, okay? So I'm going to show the side of the wallet with my finger in here, my first finger, so that I can let go of everything else and it will just open up. This is important because you don't want to fumble at this moment. You just want to show the side on. As they're looking here, it's perfect in this direction to grab from your wallet or from your pocket and bring the deck up into play. So what you're going to do is open this up so that this is going to act as your cover, and it's going to cover the fact when I lay it flat that I have a deck of cards hidden underneath. So I'll show you this again from above or straight on. This is going to come up like this and just lay flat, but this is going to be covering that. So this motion and this motion together is going to create that, okay? I'm then going to grab out this gimmick and I want to throw it down so it opens up pretty much where I believe the deck to be underneath, okay? So I'm going to throw down here. Now I can remove this and position this because they don't know what's going to happen at this point. And it's here that I'm now going to push this off. At the same time, it's going to fall on top, and my left hand is going to drag that deck away, and the right hand is going to throw that down on the table. So the misdirection is this kind of being moved and thrown. At the same time, this left hand with the deck in it is going to just remain stationary. You might want to use your thumb to help you and guide you with this, right? But it's going to move and drop on the table, and you go straight to opening. Now, obviously this looks pretty obvious, but if I was to squeeze here and cover with the hand, that covers everything. And at this point, they're more interested in the fact the cards have just appeared in there. So this is going to go south into your pocket, and you are literally ready to perform your favorite card trick. So if you don't want to carry this around with you, which I would fully advise because it is pretty much flat pack, you probably have a wallet on you already, and you can remove your cards from that wallet and replace it with Jason's awesome gimmick. Now that will mean that you can carry flat pack with you. Obviously you are going to be carrying less cards, but you know, it might be worth that for you. That will get closed, and this will work exactly the same. So it will open like this. You will load your deck of cards behind, pull it out from here, throw it down on top. and then load your deck from underneath. So it's exact same process, but you're going from your wallet rather than this.
So guys, that was Flatpak. Hope you have a lot of fun with it. If you guys have any questions about it, feel free to hit me up on Instagram or Facebook at Deception is Reality. Other than that, go out, blow some people's minds, and feel free to tag me in any videos that you've got going on about it, and tag Murphy's. We know you're going to love it. Enjoy.